on the air with a near-total security lockdown outside the world's most famous arena, with President Trump about to be on his way to New York to cheer on his hometown basketball team, meaning the security is intense, especially after a separate stabbing less than 24 hours ago in the same spot. All of it ahead of what could be the most expensive game in NBA history. We're going to take you to the heart of the action outside Madison Square Garden in just a moment. And new tonight, dramatic flooding from the Midwest to the South, with 27 million people now under alerts tonight. We've got some of those new images and the latest forecast. Plus, we're learning more about the American pilots whose plane went down in flames on their way to pick up a baseball legend. Then, seems like half the movie industry has its own obsession today, with takes in a range of temperatures on the crew member complaining she didn't get paid enough for her work on the horror movie that's become the summer's surprise blockbuster. We've got that in a minute. Then in tonight's original, with the cost of driving and owning a car more expensive than ever, why some Americans are looking overseas to save. Then, with the countdown on for the World Cup, we'll take you outside the last public practice for the U.S. men's soccer team. And guess what? We've got your viewers' playbook, the storylines you need to know before all the action this weekend, coming up later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and right now thousands of people are lining up for what's probably going to be the most locked down NBA Finals game of all time. And security is beyond, with President Trump set to arrive at Madison Square Garden any minute. He's going to cheer on his hometown team. The first time that a sitting president has gone to an NBA Finals game. Want to show you, this is the barriers they're putting up. Bike rack lining the area outside MSG. Take a look here. You've got a ton of blocks. This is like almost half a mile that's shut down around Madison Square Garden. Only people with game tickets or train tickets from Penn Station right under the Garden can get through. The NYPD and Secret Service want fans to get ready for what they call TSA-style security. Listen to this.
We all know what tonight means to New Yorkers who have been waiting a long time for an opportunity like this. The Secret Service's focus is straightforward: to ensure everyone attending the game can enjoy the game and have a safe experience while we carry out our responsibility to protect the President of the United States.
That security presence coming after a stabbing attack inside Penn Station right under MSG, with 6 people hurt. A suspect right now with no indication there's any ties to the president's visit. But it does put a renewed spotlight on safety inside the New York City subway system, which transports more than 4.5 million riders a year. After a number of attacks in recent years we've covered on this show, including some you see here, the guy with the machete just last month, a woman who died after being set on fire, a man who shot 10 people on a train, a man surviving after getting pushed under a moving train. I want to bring in Sam Brock, who's live for us now outside Madison Square Garden. To be clear, and I want to say it again, just to be clear about it, no indication that that stabbing attack had any ties at all to the president's visit, to the game, etc. It does, however, speak to the broader security presence as a whole that you're seeing there around Madison Square Garden.
It is unfortunate, Hallie, that the stabbing happened. It is also just a reality that the stabbing happened to happen in one of the busiest transit hubs in New York City that is directly underneath Madison Square Garden. In terms of what we know about the background of it, Amtrak police say that this was not someone that was targeting President Trump or anyone else for that matter, but had been struggling with mental health, stabbed 6 people, some of whom were slashed in the face. So it's incredibly serious. I will point out, however, if you look at the broader statistics in New York City, major crime down 10.6% year over year, transit crime down 6%. So the numbers are trending in the right direction. But look, New York, like many other cities, big cities, does struggle with the mental illness epidemic and how to help those who are having a hard time. All of that said, the bigger topic, you've already hit upon it, is the sprawling security footprint related to President Trump. I'm standing on 8th Avenue right now. This is actually kind of surprising to me that there's cars behind me. This is supposed to be locked down to all vehicular and pedestrian traffic by this point. I can tell you 7th Avenue on the other side of MSG is, and you're just seeing Secret Service agents, NYPD officers, probably 1,000 plus of them, all sorts of law enforcement agencies. You're going to see a car come across with its lights blaring momentarily right there. I mean, they're everywhere. I did have a chance to talk with fans about what do they make of the concept that President Trump is coming to attend this game. I got a broad spectrum of responses. Take a listen.
I don't understand why it was necessary, but go Knicks. Everyone's allowed to come, I guess. It's just, to me, it's a big distraction.
It is what it is, right? You get it a little bit early. I don't think it's going to impact us as much. There's a lot of noise, obviously, with it, but just ignore it and enjoy the game.
Hallie, the upshot to all of this is that police are warning fans, especially if you do have tickets, get there at least 2 hours or more in advance. It's a TSA screening type of experience where they're going to go through magnetometers and be individually screened by NYPD officers. Everyone that is going into the arena, you can't bring bags inside. That was a major security pivot as well. So there's a lot of safeguards they're putting in place to try to make sure this goes smoothly.
And what makes, I mean, Sam, this isn't just the Super Bowl of the NBA, right? Like, it's a big deal. It's a huge sporting event. It's happening in New York. It's the president's presence there that is making this like such a thing. He hasn't, I just checked with the team, looking at my clock here, 5 after 5 where you are in the East, obviously 2:05 in the West. President Trump has not gotten on the move yet to Madison Square Garden, but he is no stranger to the old sporting event. They've become kind of a theme of his presidency here, and he knows MSG.
Not at all. I would say that of recent presidents, he's certainly one of the most invested when it comes to sporting events. Just to give you a list of this term as president, the types of events that he's attended, everything from a Daytona 500 to a UFC fight to the Army-Navy game to Yankees games. And yes, of course, Game 3 and President Trump has been attending as non-president games, you know, going back to the 80s and 90s when he was a fixture on the social scene, was always at MSG. He's good friends with James Dolan, the owner, whom Trump says invited him to the event tonight. I just think the reality is anytime a president or major political figure attends an event, but especially the president, it changes the entire security configuration just for that one thing. And that map that you showed at the top of your newscast here explains the entire thing. 5 city blocks and 3 avenues in midtown Manhattan. You're talking about a gigantic chunk of real estate, and it does affect a lot of people.
Are you jammed in there? Can we see what you're seeing? Like, it looks like, I mean, there's definitely traffic getting through, which is sort of interesting so close to game time.
Indeed. As I said, I'm a little bit surprised about what we're seeing right now because there's not supposed to be traffic. I will say, if you look down toward the corner over there, that's actually where the fencing and one of the checkpoints is. And there's just a whole bunch of what looks almost construction-type trucks. And you've got, I mean, they might be creating a physical barrier. That could be what that is, but there's still traffic moving back and forth. And of course, because it's New York City, there's sirens every half a second. So this is sort of the sights and sounds that we're experiencing right now. In addition to all of those jerseys, Hallie, because yes, there is a basketball game to be played on top of all this. I'm sure you were going to ask about that next.
You know what I decided? You know, you keep asking Priscilla, Shaq, but who are you rooting for? Here's what I've decided. I like Wemby. I think I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a fan of Knicks fans.
How about this?
I like Knicks fans. You guys are cool.
City of New York. I like the Spurs too. Listen, I like the Spurs. They're going to win plenty of championships. Wemby is unbelievable. Let the Knicks have just this one. And now I've said my piece.
All right. Sam's Hot Takes, a recurring segment here on the show. Sam, good luck. Get off the street, I guess. Move in. We'll see you next hour. We'll check back in as we see if the president gets on the move here. Quite a scene in Midtown. Thank you, my friend. Hey, quite a scene in the Midwest and the South, too. We are just getting this in. We actually, right before we came on the air, we're looking at this going, man, this is becoming a big story here. Serious flood watches now for some 28 million people. Possible tornadoes now in the forecast. And look at some of the new video we're just getting in from out in Missouri. So these are water rescues that are happening like literally this afternoon here, right? They're trying to get to people. This flooding came up super quick in Missouri, not just there, but in Alabama too. Want to show you some more images there. It's just kind of everywhere around Huntsville. You see some folks that had to evacuate from their houses for the same reason. I mean, not just in Alabama and Missouri, but Oklahoma too. This is really becoming a thing. In the West, just to get another check of what's going on weather-wise, you've got this fast-moving fire in Southern California, down by San Diego, which is creating some evacuations as well. You can see the smoke there drifting over some of those nearby buildings. I want to bring in our meteorologist, Bill Cairns. Bill, this flooding has been looking increasingly serious as the afternoon has progressed. Walk us through today's forecast and what they can expect tonight in some of those hard-hit spots.
Yeah, Alabama was the worst over the weekend. Today it's been all about Missouri, and now that heavy rain threat is shifting into Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and areas of Indiana. We also now have tornado watches that are up. This is going to be an incredibly busy spring active weather wave. I mean, we're going to have huge hail. We're going to have tornadoes this week. We're going to have a lot of wind damage. We have a heat wave that we're going to deal with, and that doesn't even count the flooding and the river flooding either. So the areas for possible tornadoes from Denver out towards eastern Colorado, extending on Interstate 70, a little sliver of southern Nebraska into central Kansas. That goes till 10 o'clock this evening. And as far as the flood watches go, you mentioned the 28 million. Everyone in the maroon is under a current flash flood warning. These are the areas here in Missouri, especially southern portions of down towards the Ozarks, Springfield southwards, and now we've had this cluster of thunderstorms with some problems in Illinois, now even pushing into Indiana. So we have about 4 days in a row of pretty serious storms with tornadoes. Tomorrow we go into the Dakotas, a little sliver of Minnesota. Then that storm system moves towards some highly populated areas from Minneapolis through Wisconsin, good chunk of Iowa. By the time we get to Thursday, heads up to anyone in Chicago, this looks like your most dangerous severe weather day so far this spring. Possible tornadoes. That's from St. Louis, Kansas City towards Chicago. And on top of everything, it's going to be our first little mini heat wave of the season. And then we're talking not just temperatures. This is that gross air. It's going to be very humid. So let's tell you how hot it's going to feel. St. Louis tomorrow, 103. Memphis, 105. Yes, you get this over the summer. It's just kind of the first time, so it takes a little bit for your body to get used to it. St. Louis feels like 105 on Wednesday. Memphis, 104. And then, Hallie, I know you've been waiting for it in D.C. That air you can wear, it arrives by the time we get on Thursday. 100 degrees on Thursday, 97 on Friday.
That's so gross.
It is gross.
Thanks, bud. No, I appreciate that. Vivid, for sure. Bill Cairns, we'll check back in with you. I know as the night goes on. Keep an eye on those people out in Missouri, too. Appreciate that. Let's take you to the West now, specifically to L.A. They are still counting up the votes there, and President Trump has been repeating this familiar refrain. Look at this. Rigged election, crooked election, rigged election. He's been on a tear on Truth Social. A lot of the same lines he uses to talk about the 2020 election he lost, this time in reference to what's going on in the L.A. mayor's race. Highlighted with this abrupt ending to his conversation with our Meet the Press moderator, Kristen Welker, when asked about these allegations, when it was pointed out there's no evidence. And to be clear, nobody, not President Trump, not anyone, has provided any direct evidence of fraud in the L.A. mayor's race. But with Trump-friendly candidate Spencer Pratt now falling to third in the latest vote count behind the progressive councilwoman Nithya Raman, you're starting to hear more people on the right amplify those claims. Dana Griffin is in L.A. for us now with a bit of a reality check on all of it. Hey, Dana, walk us through that piece of it.
It's interesting because we've seen Pratt kind of switch his sort of take on this vote count. At first, he said, well, they're not the only ones who know where to get to find votes. And then he also alluded that Raman picked up an additional 43,000 votes from people experiencing homelessness, pointing to last year's homelessness count, which was close to that number. So today he's now saying, folks, we're dealing with a fraction of a percentage point difference. There's still hundreds of thousands of votes outstanding, and LA officials have given us the next 3 weeks to count. Let's get her done. So it sounds like someone who is pretty trusting of this system. There have been concerns about whether voter fraud could be at play here. Look, there is no signs of voter fraud. California accepts ballots up to a week if they are postmarked by Election Day. And we are one of 8 states that have mail-in voting. And you can even look at the numbers on your screen just to see how complex California is compared to other states. We have an estimated 23 million registered voters, and ballot processing is open to the public here in California. So you can go in, take a look if you have questions and just want to see how the process is going. And it can take several days to get to the final count. And usually when we get to about 95% of the vote, that's when we can make a better projection. So we can take a look at some other major races in our country. The 2022 U.S. Senate primary, that took 20 days. And the 2024 president general election took 11 days. So, Hallie, this vote count is nothing new. We've seen it before.
What about the results themselves, the counting of it all, Dana? I mean, it's almost a week ago now that we were all hanging out on our special coverage on election night into the wee hours there in the West Coast, sort of waiting and waiting, and here we are still waiting.
Yeah, we are still waiting. Right now, when it comes to the L.A. mayor's race, there's about 146,000 votes that still need to be counted. There's about 3,000 votes that separate Pratt and Nithya Raman, so the race can go either way. We saw Nithya Raman surge ahead of Pratt, and that was expected because most Democrats vote by mail. Pratt is a registered Republican, and we know that a lot of Democrats were holding onto their ballot because of the gubernatorial race. They wanted to see if there would be any additional shakeups, so they held onto their ballots until the last minute. Now, when it comes to the governor's race, Javier Becerra is projected to be in the runoff come November, but the second place candidate is still to be determined, even though Steve Hilton has kind of held that space since election night, but it is still just so close to call. There's about 2 million votes that have not been counted for the gubernatorial race. So it is a wait-and-see game, Hallie, and it could take several days.
Dana Griffin, you'll be there for all of it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's take you overseas, where tonight it feels like President Trump's trying to get this ceasefire back on track after Israel and Iran traded strikes for the first time since April. It was a big deal as it was happening over the last 24 hours. The president now says both sides want a ceasefire ASAP. And in his convo with the prime minister today, was told by Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel will retaliate if Iran strikes again, according to an Israeli official. So, back it up. What was the issue? Well, the IDF says Iran launched something like 30 missiles into Israel, even just today. Air raid sirens were going off in Tel Aviv. You can kind of hear them in the background there. Iran now says it's over, but that was after Israel struck back, hitting an oil and a gas plant. Iran, you see it there. Iranian state media says you could hear explosions in Tehran today. Let me get to Richard Engel in Jerusalem. And what was interesting here is, like, you know, we've been talking a lot about the semantics of the word ceasefire, what that actually means in this war in the region here. And now you've got the Iranian chief negotiator saying this ceasefire was only on paper, quote unquote. So where do things stand now? Can we still fairly and reliably call it a ceasefire?
Well, what is it? Are you talking about a ceasefire in Lebanon? No, I don't think you can call it a ceasefire in Lebanon. It's being openly violated daily. Hezbollah has been firing into Israel. Israel has troops in southern Lebanon. Israeli forces were attacking in southern Lebanon today. According to Lebanese medical officials, about 30 people were killed in Israeli strikes just today, many of them focused around the city of Tyre. So I don't think you could call that a reliable ceasefire. And the Lebanese president just a short while ago said that he wants, and he made an appeal to the Israeli people, saying he wants to sit down, he wants to talk with Netanyahu, and he wants to come up with a real deal, a real ceasefire. In terms of the agreement, peace agreement, ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, sort of a ceasefire. There is still a U.S. military blockade. We haven't seen an escalation of direct fire between the U.S. and Iran for a couple of days, but they do seem to be happening every couple of days. So that ceasefire is very shaky. And then yesterday, we saw this exchange of fire because of Lebanon, Iran says, because Iran wants any peace deal with Iran to include a peace deal with Lebanon as well. We saw the Iranians fire about 30 ballistic missiles, Israel firing at Lebanon, and both sides now appear to be backing away from that stage of the conflict. But both of them say the war is not over and are both prepared to keep fighting.
What's also interesting here is the president and the way that he is, trying to, I don't know what cliche to pick, Richard. Flex a muscle, thread a needle, the war against Iran. We all know the president, the president was very involved in that, obviously. He's now saying to this other publication that, he calls the shots, in his words, when it comes to the situation against Iran. The relationship between the president, between the Israeli prime minister is so important here, and it's just been so fascinating to watch.
Well, I'm not sure if you're going to find an appropriate cliche because it's quite a unique situation. Just a few months ago, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu launched a war on Iran together, based on intelligence that they claimed that Iran was close to developing a nuclear weapon, that the leadership was meeting, and that there was an opportunity to strike and to take out the top leaders, and the supreme leader was in fact killed. And now you see President Trump trying to step back and negotiate a conflict between Israel and Iran, trying to negotiate an end to a war or partial end to war that he was that he started. So I'm not sure if you're going to find one particular analogy that fits the situation, but he does seem, the relationship with President Trump and Netanyahu does seem to be openly tense, with President Trump saying that he calls the shots, that he's not going to be led by Netanyahu, and he's not going to have Netanyahu keep this war dragging on because of Israel's agenda and Netanyahu's agenda.
Richard Engel, live for us in the region with an admirably cliche-free analysis. Richard, thank you so much. It's good to see you, as always. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Let's bring it back here to the U.S. because police tonight are asking the public for any help to figure out who was involved in that shooting at an Ohio festival. With the attackers at large right now, at least 2 people started aiming at each other during this Toledo festival Saturday, according to police. Several hundred people were there, a ton of people around. And, you know, people had their phones. One eyewitness pulled out their phone, started taking some video here of the moment that the shots started. Watch this. Ugh. It's like the last thing you ever want to hear when you're around a bunch of people at a festival here. 12 victims in that shooting apparently are doing better, which is good news. They are in stable condition. Stephen Romo is following this story for us. But, Stephen, no arrests at this point, right?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And to be honest, there's some frustration in the community about how little is known about those shooters as we are now in the third day of the search to try to find them. Police say, as you mentioned, they're looking for at least 2 shooters in this situation who were very likely aiming for each other, meaning these 12 people were caught in the crossfire of this. And Hallie, this is the Old West End Festival that they have every year in Toledo. There was live music and street food, so there were a lot of families there. There were a lot of children there. Really upsetting that children experienced this chaotic situation that just completely disturbed their peace. And listen to what Toledo's mayor had to say in a statement. I thought this was interesting. He said, "Toledo has faced more adversity over the years than most cities, and our citizens always rally together and pull through. This will be no exception." I was fascinated going through all the video that we've seen of this shooting today, Hallie. And so often we hear that there are shots fired. People don't really know what it is. They think maybe it's fireworks. People seem to know very quickly what it was in this situation, most likely because those dozen people were hit by the gunfire. Meanwhile, shooters still apparently out there, and there are no scheduled updates from police expected to come until tomorrow morning. So could be then until we get more information. Hallie?
Stephen Romo, thank you very much. Appreciate that. In just the last hour, we are getting some new video of scenes across South Florida after a 6.1 magnitude earthquake hit right off the coast of Cuba. Happened about 300 miles from Miami. City officials say nobody there was hurt. There's no damage to buildings, so it seems to be good news. People did come outside, obviously. They're still monitoring the whole thing. On the other side of the Gulf, similar scenes here. Crowds of people evacuating from a hotel all the way in Cancun, Mexico. In Cuba, no immediate reports of anybody hurt or any damage, but we're keeping an eye on all of it. We will bring you anything new as we get it. The U.S. is also tracking tsunami alerts and more than 130 aftershocks near the Philippines after a deadly earthquake there killed at least 32 people. 200 plus have been hurt. And look at this. Really bad damage there. I mean, look at that roof just totally coming down, slid down off the foundation. Debris covering the streets there as well. Happened this morning local time, about 15 miles off the coast of the Philippines. That's where the center of the quake was, 7.8 magnitude. That is fairly significant. The strongest earthquake to hit the Philippines this year. Kira Simmons is watching all of it for us.
Hey there, yeah, this was, as you describe, a sizable earthquake in the southern Mindanao region of the Philippines. It is a part of the world that is prone to seismic activity, but this was a substantial one, and there are frightening pictures of buildings collapsing and of school children. They had just got back to school after a long break, and elementary school children, for example, running for cover as the ground shook. Many buildings damaged or even destroyed, and through the night there have been searches for those missing to try and find survivors, aside from those who we know already have been killed. And as we head towards 24 hours since the earthquake took place, one of the fears has been the number of aftershocks. Their number of aftershocks has been in triple figures, and of course that is a risk for those who've been displaced as they fear heading back into their homes or even into buildings that may have been damaged. There's been concern too for critical infrastructure like bridges, and then this earthquake that happened offshore causing a tsunami, not the biggest tsunami that we've seen in that region through history, but certainly one that has caused damage and brought about fears for many people living along that coastline.
Kira Simmons, our thanks to him for that reporting. To a new warning now on that Ebola outbreak we've been talking about. CDC officials say this could now be the potentially biggest Ebola epidemic in history. It's right up there, because in just the last 10 days, you saw the case count nearly triple in the DRC and Uganda. 400 more confirmed infections. 74 more people have been killed, according to the WHO. Health officials at this point are actually not even counting cases quite as sort of specifically as they had been. they're spiking so fast. There are so many of them that they say they've had to basically scale back here. There is a bit of good news from this, too, though. You might remember the American doctor who was infected while treating patients in the DRC. He's now been reunited with his family. You just saw that picture there. After he was released from a hospital in Germany, he has now recovered from this Ebola infection. Let's get to Dr. Akshay Syal. Dr. Akshay, we're glad to have you with us tonight. And one of the big questions around this, not just how much more will it spread, there's real concern about that given how deadly it is, but how did this latest outbreak start?
Well, how great was it to see the doctor there with his family? I remember a few weeks ago, you and I were talking, about his hospitalization, about his case, and we weren't really sure, how he was doing. So great to see that. You can see the photos of him again on your screen. But, Hallie, when it comes to how this outbreak started, I want to point to a CDC report that just came out late last week on Friday evening, essentially pointing to an animal-to-human spill. They think that this happened sometime in February 2026 of this year, that there was transmission from an animal reservoir to a human, and then things sort of took off from there. But to answer your question, the reason we need to know that is because of future outbreaks, right? If we don't know how something started in the first place, how can you prevent it from happening again? It's sort of basic history, and it's something that investigators are really, really watching closely. And, Hallie, in that CDC report, I want to read you a line here, which I think is so important. They are kind of warning that this outbreak, if we don't take it seriously, could balloon to the 2013, 2014 outbreak that saw nearly 30,000 people infected, over 10,000 deaths. But they say here, Hallie, if 70% of patients were to enter isolation, only a 1 in 20 simulation projected getting numbers this high. So while the numbers could potentially balloon out of control, they do think it is controllable with things like isolation, things like testing and quarantine.
And then there have been measures that the U.S. has put in place, too, to try to make sure that it doesn't spread, obviously, further, right?
Correct. And we don't have any confirmed cases here in the United States. And back in the outbreak that I mentioned earlier, there were about 11 or 12 confirmed cases. So not, astronomical numbers that we did see, here in the U.S. And Hallie, another CDC report, additionally to the one I just mentioned, came out on Friday evening as well. It's saying that should they did say that the risk to the U.S. was low, but should there be a case here, we are more than prepared to handle it as we did in the previous outbreak. And just a reminder for those who don't know, this is the Bunda Bugio form of Ebola. It is a different strain than the one we saw before. There is currently no vaccine or treatment available, and why investigators are taking this so seriously. Hallie.
Dr. Akshay Syal, Dr. Akshay, we're glad to have you with us. And yes, obviously, and I was going to ask you about it too, great news about the doctor who's now been reunited with his family. I know that you'd been in touch with those close to him. So thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Of course.
Let's take it to Texas now. Inside a courtroom there with a teen's murder trial coming to a fairly quick close. We told you about this just last week. Carmelo Anthony, the defendant here, deciding not to testify today in his own defense. His lawyers actually rested their case already. The judge telling the jury this afternoon they've now heard all the evidence they're going to hear. In this case, Anthony, remember, is accused of killing another student, Austin Metcalf, at a high school track meet last year. Anthony's attorneys say it was self-defense. It's a case that captivated the country and became controversial. A big part of why, at least now, has been the makeup of the jury. Anthony is black, Metcalf was white, and none of the 12 jurors, our 6 alternates, are black. Closing arguments are set for tomorrow, and the jury is also expected to start deliberating. So we may be on verdict watch by this time tomorrow night. We'll keep you updated on that. Still ahead for us tonight, how actor Idris Elba is responding to all the rumors that he might be the next James Bond. Plus, the growing questions after a deadly plane crash that killed 2 Americans on their way to pick up a baseball legend. That's next. Investigators are trying to figure out why a private plane crashed in the Dominican Republic, killing the 2 American pilots who were on board on their way to pick up a baseball legend. We've got video of the crash, the private jet smashing into the ground. It's just horrific to watch, triggering this smoke cloud right off the runway at the airport. You can see it never really got off the ground. A Dominican aviation agency says the plane was registered in the U.S. There were no passengers on board. But former MLB star Yadier Molina offered his condolences to the pilots. He said the plane was headed to Texas to pick him up and then take him to Puerto Rico. Our George Solis has more.
Hallie, the video is dramatic to say the least. From what we've gathered here from aviation officials there in the Dominican Republic, this private jet was in the air maybe a few minutes before the pilots on board declared an emergency and needed to land. And what you see there is the plane veering off the runway, trying to land, eventually just erupting into that ball of fire that you see there. Then you see first responders trying to put out the flames. Of course, the people on the ground there just taken back by what they were seeing. Now, we do know there was no one else on board, according to aviation officials. It was just the pilot and his co-pilot. We're told they were U.S. nationals, pilots that are being remembered and eulogized on Facebook through various groups and other people that knew them. And again, aviation officials right now saying they don't know what the cause of this was. They just know that the plane was in the air there for a number of minutes before this emergency was declared. Now, of course, the other part to this story is where this flight was reportedly heading to. This plane was in La Romana International, set to be en route to Austin, Texas, to pick up an MLB star, Yadier Molina, who on social media posted, Yadi posting that this flight was apparently there to pick him up, heading to pick him up and bring him back to Puerto Rico with his family. He, of course, expressed his condolences for the loss. We reached out to reps for Yadi Molina. We have not heard back. Again, the investigation into this crash continues right now, Hallie. We've also reached out to other aviation officials there in the DR to see if there's anything more that they have gathered or learned here in the hours since this happened on Sunday, but they are still trying to collect more data from this horrific crash. And again, that baseball star also safe. Again, that flight supposed to pick him up from Texas to bring him back to Puerto Rico. More to come on this, of course. Hallie?
George Solis, thank you very much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, we're just learning there are at least 3 more confirmed cases of that screwworm, the flesh-eating parasite we've been telling you about, found in a dog, a goat, and a calf in Texas. Hundreds of miles apart from each other, according to the new update from health officials today. That means the total number of cases is up to 5 after this screwworm was first discovered last week in this country. The governor has launched an emergency operations center to respond to that threat. Number 2, the former king of crypto just asked the president for a pardon, according to the DOJ website. The founder, remember FTX? Remember Sam Bankman-Fried? Man, that name was everywhere. He's now serving a 25-year sentence after he was convicted of running that massive fraud scheme. Back in January, the president said he had no intention of pardoning several high-profile people, including SBF, when asked. His request is still listed as pending. Number 3, actor Idris Elba is ruling himself out of playing the next James Bond. He says some audiences, in his opinion, wouldn't go for a black man in the role. He also told GQ in a new interview that Bond should not become, in his words, woke. Rumors around him taking the job date back years and years, 2008, I think, when Daniel Craig said it was time for a black Bond. Number 4, nearly 100 schools in one city in Japan are closed today because of a bear on the loose. Look at this. You can see surveillance video of the bear running around right here. It comes as bear attacks are on the rise in Japan. Number 5, elsewhere in Asia, this video has gone viral. The moment, wait for it, what's happening with the humanoid robots? Oh my God. What are we doing? So this is an amusement park in China. Are we gonna re-rack this video? We have to play it again. The humanoid robot with the blue hair walks up, is doing some little motions, punch, punch, boom, right in that kiddo's chest. The good news is the child is okay, we are told, right? So obviously not great in the moment, rather startling, but the kiddo's doing okay. Let's get a grip on the robots, you know? The internet kind of on fire, not just from that video, but from this very interesting post that was dropped from an art director from this big, huge, kind of the summer surprise blockbuster, the indie film Obsession. She said she made less than $7 grand for her work on the project, a movie that has now grossed like millions and millions and millions of dollars. Obsession. If you haven't heard of it, it's this kind of like low-budget psychological horror film. It's now expected to break $250 million at the box office. The art director for the movie says she was paid about $300 per day for what she calls a pretty stressful production. But some in the industry say that her pay and workload is actually fairly average for indie films. We've reached out to the director of Obsession and Focus Features for comment. We didn't immediately hear back. We should note Focus is part of NBC News' parent company, Comcast. I want to bring in Chloe Malas, who's following this one. This thing kind of blew up, right? Because on the one hand, you've got folks saying, well, the art director knew what she signed up for at the start. And like, this is kind of what happens in these indie movies. You maybe take a little bit of a bet. You don't know, is it going to hit big or not? Maybe you use it as a launching pad for the rest of your career. There's others who say, hey, she's sort of shining a light maybe on this industry practice. Walk us through some of the dynamics here.
Hallie, there is so much to unpack here. And like you said, this movie being made for $750,000, going on to make worldwide over $200 million. Its focus features highest grossing movie ever. So let's just put that into perspective. So Sally, when she took to Instagram to write about all the hats that she wore on the production, not just art director, she says she was a driver, she ran errands, she did all sorts of things, and it is an indie movie. She says, I did know the rate beforehand, and I agreed to it. But at this point, I was living paycheck to paycheck. This is the reality of most filmmakers, especially those who work below the line. We become a line in the budget sheet to keep as low as possible. She goes on to say, I kick myself every single day for not flipping this production. I was encouraged not to, and I naively listened. A lot of people are coming forward saying, listen, I hear you. I commiserate with you. I was there too. You know, you got to keep working in the industry, pay your dues. Now, others are saying, why would you kick a gift horse in the mouth, saying that although you didn't make a lot of money, this was only your second film, it seems, on her resume. You could have used this instead of burning bridges to potentially work with these individuals again, to come out so publicly. Perhaps not a very good idea. But as you said, Hallie, it is creating a lot of conversation. But I want to point out, though, that $300 a day as an art director on an indie movie, that is typical. You can't, that's the low end, but that's not below the line.
Can I ask a question? This is not my, my field of work, and I'm curious about this. When it comes to like union rules, for example, would a movie like this have been covered by the union? Like, do they cover these sort of low budget indies?
They absolutely do, and it appears that she is in a union, and $300 a day is the standard rate. She made a little under $7,000 for about 20 days of work. And when you look at what other companies are doing, Ben Affleck's AI company, they are looking to make sure to give below the line people who work on their movies a bump when a movie does really well, like a bonus, an incentive. And there are other companies, like one called Ethos, which has had a couple movies where they actually pay everybody, including the lead actor and those behind the scenes and art directors, all the same amount of money, which is actually a really interesting concept that they say actually works really, really well. And they did that for their movie Sing Sing, which, as you know, got a lot of critical acclaim. So it's starting an important conversation about pay equity. This woman has a lot of courage to come out and say these things. But again, others say that, you know what, maybe she's burning some bridges.
Chloe Malas, thank you very much for being on top of that one. Appreciate it. Some breaking news just into us in the tech IPO race, the filing we have just learned about from OpenAI coming up. Then some scary moments after a truck full of fireworks explodes. That is something. More on that in a minute. So some breaking news literally just into us. OpenAI filing to go public about a week after its biggest competitor, Anthropic, did the same thing. Remember, we told you this was coming. Now it is here. OpenAI says they haven't decided exactly when they're going to let investors buy stocks. Writing in this statement, it may be a while because there are things we want to do that are likely easier as a private company. Remember, we're about to see a whole lot of action in the markets because SpaceX, remember, is expected to do its public offering here at $1 trillion plus valuation in a couple days. Anthropic, going to make a ton of money, too. Still TBD on when Anthropic's going to start trading, but you're seeing Sam Altman here, the head, of course, of OpenAI. So lots to watch in the business tech world, as always. Also tonight, lots to watch as prosecutors and defense attorneys are getting a first look today at potential jurors in the trial of the man accused of starting what became one of the deadliest and most destructive wildfires in California history. Jonathan Rinderknecht is accused of starting a fire in January of last year, which then reignited a few days later and exploded into, of course, the Palisades fire, which killed 12 people, which destroyed thousands of homes across L.A. Prosecutors say that the man on trial was upset about a failed relationship and had ranted to some of his Uber passengers about being mad at the world. Now, his defense team says he's actually a scapegoat for the L.A. Fire Department, which his attorneys blame for not stopping the initial fire. Steve Patterson is joining us now. And Steve, it's the very beginning of the trial now, but it's coming at a time when obviously, the wounds have, and I don't mean to get like all philosophical, but the wounds still have not healed from the Palisades fire even in the first place here. It's still very raw for so many people. Walk us through some of that and what's expected as this trial really gets going.
I mean, you can see the rawness in the nature of the LA mayor's race. Look no further than the fact that Spencer Pratt is a candidate for LA mayor in a place that is, what, less than 20% registered Republicans, in a place where this guy who's this reality star villain has become the possible third candidate vying for a top 2 spot in the November primary. His candidacy is entirely based on the fact that he did lose a home in the LA fires, but so many people have also had that experience, right? 6,800 structures destroyed, 12 people killed. People were mad, and people continue to be mad because while rebuilding has started, a lot of the phase 1, phase 2 debris removal, some of the foundations are coming back, permits have been cleared. People still remember what happened that day, and they're questioning the leadership. They're questioning a mayor that essentially wasn't here when those fires were happening. They're questioning a mayor that possibly had some ties to how the budget worked leading up to the fires and how many firefighters were on the ground and what was taken from the reservoirs. All of those questions have led people to think maybe there needs to be a change here. And I think that sort of open wound is still raw. It's still here, and you can still definitely feel it, Hallie. Opening statements expected in a few days. Jury selection right now, as you mentioned. Hallie?
But the judge says the defense can't actually introduce evidence or arguments accusing the fire department of negligence because she says it's irrelevant, right?
That's right. And that was sort of, as we've been sort of hearing in these pretrial interviews, that was probably going to be their main defense. They're now saying that there were fireworks in the area, and they believe that the state does not have any evidence to tie their person to the fact that that fire started in the first place, Hallie.
Steve Patterson, thank you very much for being there. I know we'll be talking about this in the days to come. Appreciate that. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, look at this. The moment a pickup truck full of fireworks explodes in the middle of a highway in Tennessee. Watch this. That's just wild to watch. You hate to see it, right? Apparently the stockpile of fireworks went off after a fire started in the trailer, basically in the bed of the truck. The good news is, despite that, nobody was hurt, which is huge. Also, out of our Northeast Bureau, dramatic rescue in a New Jersey apartment building. First responders combing through all this trash to rescue a woman after she fell down a trash chute there. She went in on the 14th floor, ended up 10 stories down. Took about a half hour to get her out because she got stuck on top of some backed up trash. The woman and one firefighter were hurt, but both are expected to fully recover. And out of our Western Bureau, take a look at this. A hot air balloon making a rather surprise landing at a lumber yard in Oregon. The workers, I mean, it's coming in rather slowly at least. You see the workers kind of backing out. Looks like they maybe grabbed one of the ropes there, stepping in to help, which is huge. They managed to get the balloon down safely. All's well that ends well after a day on the job. Coming up, revving up the conversation about electric cars in the face of spiking costs for American drivers. We've got more in tonight's original. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it's the high cost of owning a car and what it means for your summer road trip. See the average price at the old pump today. Do we love that phrase, price at the pump? I don't know. People in the news do. You can see it's about $4.16, down a little bit, still, on the higher end. And now you've got some drivers really drilling down on how they can save some money, like possibly switching to electric, even as some cheaper EV options remain out of reach. Allie Canal explains.
This summer, it's never been more expensive to own and drive a car in America. The average new car costs almost $50,000. With interest rates still high, average monthly payments hit an all-time high of $773. And while gas prices have come down a bit, the Strait of Hormuz is still essentially closed, and you're probably paying north of $4 a gallon.
Prices are crazy, so I can see why people would want to conserve their money.
I've been walking to school now because of the gas prices.
Americans are searching for deals. One place they can't find them, Chinese electric cars. A booming biz. Last year, more than half of all cars sold in China, the largest market in the world, were electric. But Chinese automakers selling more than 500,000 cars in Europe last year, too. A big reason why? They're cheap. Leading the way, Chinese automaker BYD, which outsold Tesla in Europe starting last year, with some models starting under $30,000. Our Tom Yamas got a test drive while in China.
You can't get this in the U.S. right now.
No.
That's because of a ban on Chinese technology and 100% tariffs on China-made EVs. But now, a growing call to let China at least make their cars here.
They want to come in and build a plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors. That's great. I love that. Let China come in.
But U.S. automakers don't want China to come in. They cite national security concerns around Chinese spying. But the bigger issue might be price.
China has been going into lots of international markets and undercutting price in those markets. It might be very, very hard for U.S. automakers to adapt to.
Some believe the U.S. can compete, but only on a, quote, level playing field. GM CEO Mary Barra talking with our Christine Romans as part of our new Business in America series.
Can GM match the quality and the price of those Chinese competitors?
Well, I think you have to look at what's happening, and we know from a Chinese vehicle perspective, they're being subsidized heavily by the government. I'm confident that we can compete.
The problem is China's entire EV industry has spent decades benefiting from its own government support. The U.S. tried to offer some support with the Biden administration's EV incentives, but many of those policies now phased out, and the big three U.S. car makers racked up tens of billions of dollars in losses from EVs over the last few years. The Alliance for American Manufacturing says Chinese cars coming to the United States could be a, quote, extinction-level event for the U.S. auto sector. As gas prices eat into wallets and generate more interest in electric cars, time will tell what American consumers demand and how much they're willing to pay for it. Hallie Canal, NBC News.
Our thanks to Hallie for that reporting. More to get to here on the show, including the final preps for the World Cup. Did you hear? It's starting soon? Our Morgan Chesky is on the old pitch with Team USA. Wait, the World Cup's beginning? You got it. World Cup fever. I got it. We all got it, right? Because it starts this week, and Team USA is getting the last few kicks in before they lock in for the tournament. Look at this. The last public practice just outside L.A. The men will play 2 of their group stage games at SoFi Stadium, home of the Rams. But there's already some concerns about whether the games are going to go off cleanly, considering that stadium hospitality workers have just voted to strike. They're authorizing a strike ahead of that opening match for the U.S. Friday. Morgan Chesky is outside that practice in California. Give us sort of the I hate to say vibe check, but I don't hate to say vibe check. But what it's like, you know, there's this question of disruptions, but Team USA, I imagine, is still saying they're ready to go.
Hallie, nothing wrong with a good vibe check. The vibe's been high here in Irvine all day long. 33,000 people submitted to be a part of this lottery. 55 lucky recipients got a chance to sit inside the stadium and soak in about an hour's worth of watch time for the U.S. men's national team as they took the field. Many of them in those bright pink cleats, so we can see that fancy footwork come World Cup match time. And there was a lot of excitement, not just on behalf of the fans in attendance, many who drove from all over the place to watch this, but for the players themselves. They know they're going to have home field advantage. And here's what team veteran, one of the team veterans, Tim Reen, had to say on being one of the oldest players in World Cup history and just getting a chance to play in his backyard. Take a listen.
Pulling up here with 5,500 fans ready to watch a training session is incredible, and I just think that we're in a good place mentally right now.
Yeah, team in a great place mentally, as well as those 2 players on the team who are Southern California natives, Hallie. Everyone's excited.
I'm excited, but I know nothing about it. So in the next, I have about 40 seconds left with you. My top 3 storylines. I got my little booklet. I got my little set. Like, what am I looking for?
I've got it all locked up in here and, of course, on the screen as we share with everybody what they need to be keying in on here. Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, two of the most famous soccer players in the history of the game. Messi wants to defend Argentina's title from the last World Cup, and Ronaldo wants to win his country's first World Cup. And then, of course, you have Spanish prodigy Lamine Yamal, who's the most valuable player here, his ball-handling elite. And then you have Erling Haaland, who's hoping to lead Norway to his first tournament since 1998. Home teams have home field advantage. They want to make the World Cup quarterfinals here, if not better, Hallie.
Appreciate you. Come back. I want to do this again. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Yep.
And the next day, and the next day. Morgan Chesky, thank you very much. And thank you all, as always, for watching. This is HJN on NBC. We'll see you right back here in just a little bit. We are coming on the air with a near total security lockdown outside the world's most famous arena, with President Trump about to be on his way to New York City to cheer on his hometown basketball team, meaning the security is intense, especially after a separate stabbing less than 24 hours ago. All of it ahead of what could be the most expensive game in NBA history. We're taking you to the heart of the action outside Madison Square Garden tonight. Also new tonight, dramatic flooding from the Midwest and the South, with 27 million people under alert as we speak. We've got some of those new images and the forecast in just a minute. Then we'll take you to the West with President Trump's claims of election fraud with no evidence to back him up. Why experts say the way the LA mayor's race is playing out is not actually that much of a surprise. Plus, how President Trump is trying to get that ceasefire between Israel and Iran back on track. New details from his conversation with the Israeli leader after a new round of strikes. Then seems like half the movie industry has its own obsession today about the crew member complaining she didn't get paid enough for her work on the horror movie surprise hit of the summer. We've got more on that and all the takes coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with intense security in New York City, just a couple of hours away now from the biggest game so far of the NBA Finals, with thousands of people lining up. And it is going to be maybe the most locked down NBA Finals game of all time. Security is beyond, with President Trump set to arrive really in the next little bit, we think, right before the game starts at some point. The first time a sitting president has gone to a Finals game. In just the last 20 minutes, look at this. New video. Oh my God, those lines. People are getting ready. They got to go through this whole TSA thing. And look at this. You notice nobody's got bags. Nobody has bags because they're not allowed to bring them in. You've got about a half mile blocked off right around the Garden. Only people with game tickets or with train tickets from Penn Station right under the Garden can get through. At this point, you've got the security presence heightened even more after a stabbing attack inside Penn Station right under the Garden. 6 people hurt. No indication there's ties to the president's visit, but it does put a renewed spotlight on safety inside the New York subway system, which transports more than 4.5 million people every year. After a number of attacks in recent years we've covered on this show, including some you see here, a man with a machete just last month, a woman who died after being set on fire, a man who shot 10 people on a train, a man who survived after getting pushed under a moving train. I want to bring in Sam Brock, who's live for us outside Madison Square Garden. And Sam, like, what's so interesting here, this is not like, we're starting the show tonight talking about Knicks, whatever. This is a massive security moment here. You've got the president on his way in. You've got tons of people who are trying to get in. You've got Secret Service taking this extremely seriously, given everything that's gone down around the president over the course of the last, however many years. Walk us through it, because the lines have begun. Are people paying attention to all those warnings?
Yes, so make no doubt about it, Hallie, this would be a huge security profile event if the president were here, but the fact that he is just magnifies everything by 2 or 3x. I will say a lot of the folks that I'm talking to have been heeding the warnings, which was to come at least 2 hours early. We're 2.5 hours from game time. I'm standing right now on the corner of 33rd Street and 8th Avenue, which might not mean much to you if you don't live in New York City, but this is essentially the corner of MSG. This line stretches all the way down the block, so it goes a full city block in that direction and then wraps around the side of MSG. There's another one coming from the opposite side, moving in this direction from 2 blocks down. So you have hundreds upon hundreds, almost certainly thousands of people that are already showing up. And look, the security guidelines are pretty clear here. It's a TSA-style screening. A second ago, we were near some magnetometers. You may have the video of that. Watch people go through that first wave, and then they come to security clearance here. There's no bags inside. As you mentioned, the blocks are locked down. That's 8th Avenue on this side, 7th Avenue on the opposite side of MSG. You'll see some traffic, but largely that's come to slow down. There's these giant sanitation trucks that presumably are going to be used for security to block any sort of vehicle from trying to get into an entryway here. All of that is coming together at the same time. And the people are excited and not sure how long they're going to be waiting. But just look at this. New York is a vibe right now. It is like a pressure cooker with all of these fans that have been waiting for generations in some cases to see the Knicks get to the NBA Finals, much less win a title. They're now 2 games away from that. And you express skepticism.
No, first of all, we'll talk about the game in a second. I'm not skeptical, but I am. What's interesting to me, and I'm looking at the people in line behind you, because it's not as though the NBA is going to wait for everybody to get in before they start the game. The game starts when it starts, whether you got in line now, or you got in line in an hour, or you got in line 2 hours ago, or whatever. And we have seen some of the footprint around when President Trump travels, huge delays for big sport events. I'm thinking just the U.S. Open. Remember that last, this past fall?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was at the U.S. Open. There was a Sinner Alcaraz final, and there were like 2,000 to 3,000 fans that had spent ungodly amounts of money to get into the finals, and then we're sitting there waiting to get into Arthur Ashe because President Trump decided that he was going to go, and it cost all of them probably the first set of the match, if not more. There were a lot of angry New Yorkers about that. I think that's why you've seen the messaging that you have here in terms of getting folks out earlier so they can start this whole security process so people aren't infuriated at the end of the day. I will also add, I spoke with some people that were just upset about the fact that there's these huge watch parties feet away from where I'm standing, hundreds of thousands of people. They're not going to be able to do that, at least not at MSG tonight. Here's a sample of the reaction I got on that topic.
I think it just sucks that they got to close down the watch parties and stuff that, that the real fans that are here that really can't pay for these expensive tickets could just watch the parties.
So Mayor Mamdani, what he did was end up hosting, or is going to be hosting, an event at Bryant Park. It's about 3 or 4 blocks, maybe a little bit more than that from where I'm standing, and that's going to be up to 5,000 people. It's just not going to be concentrated right next to where the president is at MSG.
Yeah.
And the reality is NYPD and all these other law enforcement agencies have their hands full because you've seen the video of how Knicks fans were reacting after they won games 1 and 2. This is only leading to a crescendo in the coming days if they win again.
Well, and what's interesting, you talk about sort of this moment for Knicks fans, including like the Knicks fan who lives in the White House right now. The president has been, we've got some footage, he's been at games. I mean, look at this. This is from TNT back in the day. Him, I guess, courtside, or at least with pretty decent seats, watching the Knicks. And you had a chance, I know, to ask, I think, at least one of the Knicks, right? A couple of players. You're at that news conference asking about kind of the Trump factor with the game. It does feel to me like these guys are really locked in. They're trying to put some of this, everything around the game, everything off the court to the side, and really focus on the game itself. If they want to sweep in 4, as the entire city wants them to.
For sure. I think, to borrow a sports metaphor from football instead of basketball, all of the players that we spoke with were stiff-arming the idea of acknowledging any politics involved in this and just said, look, we're just trying to do our jobs. Case in point, Karl Anthony Towns, who has had an incredible start to the NBA Finals. He is truly locked in, and I did ask him yesterday, what do you make of the fact that, there's this crazy environment in New York, and also you got sports, you got politics. Are they supposed to be intertwined? Does it affect you in any way? And here's what he told me.
What do you make of the president's attendance for Game 3?
I mean, I expect our fans to come out and do what they do every game, which is come and support us at the highest level. So I'm really excited to play. It's always great when you get to play the game of basketball at its highest level. So to be able to lace the shoes up, be able to put the jersey on, and be able to see our fans see finals basketball after all this time is going to be really, really special.
Make no mistake, Hallie, there may be some notoriety associated with this, a mention or two of the president, but at the end of the day, all people care about is, are the Knicks going to win or lose this basketball game? All the players, Spurs and Knicks, care about is who's going to win this game. They're going to forget about everything else surrounding it and concentrate on what's going on the hardwood. And if the first 2 games were any indication, they both came down to really the final seconds. This could be an amazing atmosphere. New York City has not seen anything like this in a half a century. People are flying off the handle right now, not even sure what to expect. That's what takes center stage, not who's sitting in the stands.
Would you be mad if I said go Wemby right now?
Not at all. Who doesn't love Wemby? The man is supernaturally gifted. I just don't want him to win this year. That's it.
Call it then. What's the score tonight? Make your best bet. I'm going to write it down.
I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna make friends on this. I'm gonna say the Spurs get one back, 101-98, down to the wire again. But I think the Spurs are gonna claw their way back into the series.
Okay,
You heard it
no
here
sweep.
first.
Sam's prediction, no sweep. We'll talk. Thank you, pal. Appreciate you. Lots to watch tonight. Thank you. Lots to watch, too, across the Midwest and the South. You got like 27 million people under these really intense flood watches, possible tornadoes in the forecast. This has really escalated over the course of the last couple of hours. Let me show you what else we're seeing out of Missouri here. Look at this. These are first responders. They've had to come in and make these back-to-back water rescues from people who were just caught off guard by what has happened here. We're seeing this. Look at this. They're taking them. They're floating them down rafts. That's in Missouri. That's after what we saw in and around Alabama of people who had to evacuate their homes for the same reason, with more bad weather still on the way for the Midwest and the Plains. I want to bring in our meteorologist, Bill Cairns. This is one of those things, Bill, just to pull back the curtain. Like we were talking about it in our meeting with the team around. We're like, man, this weather, like this flooding is looking more and more intense in Missouri. Like it's getting scary for some of the folks who live around there.
Yeah, and let's be honest, we've had a relatively tame spring. We haven't had like widespread flooding to talk about. We haven't been dealing with a lot of problems with a lot of huge tornadoes, like, knock on wood somewhere, but, the number of injuries and fatalities has been really low. But this week looks kind of dangerous, and one of the more dangerous weeks we've had so far. And we're starting with the isolated chance of tornadoes today, and we do have that in areas coming out of Colorado from Denver eastward on 70 into areas of western Kansas. We're mostly worried about flash flooding tonight in areas of Illinois, Wisconsin, also Indiana, and then isolated cases possible in areas of Tennessee and also Kentucky. And I'll show you one area that's actually dealing with it right now. First things first, though. Right now, ground stop. Not a fun evening to be trying to get in and out of DIA. The thunderstorms have exited Denver, but if you know where the airport's located, it's almost right underneath the top of these thunderstorms. There's been hail reported with these. I think in probably about a half hour or so, they'll be able to reopen the airport. So that's not fun for anyone trying to get in and out. Later tonight into tomorrow, we're going to shift our focus into the northern plains. That's North Dakota to Fargo, isolated chance of tornadoes. And then we take this storm into a very humid, hot air mass. We're going to get some violent storms starting Wednesday from Minneapolis all the way down through areas of Wisconsin, Chicago, Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised. We have a lot of problems at the airport at ORD as we go throughout Thursday evening. St. Louis possible, too. And then as far as fires go, I know we had some fire problems outside of San Diego. Tomorrow's going to be one of those days where it's going to be dangerous, critical risk. Northern Arizona, southern Utah, extremely dry. All the snow is gone. It hasn't rained, and so we easily could get some storms starting there. You showed and talked about all the flooding problems. We only have a couple flash flood warnings left now. They've expired in areas of southern Missouri, but we do have in Knoxville, Tennessee. If you've ever been to beautiful Knoxville, right along Interstate 40, hilly land, we've had some heavy downpours in that area, and there is a flash flood warning. So we'll monitor that. I'll let you know if I see any pictures of how bad that situation is.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, this is going to be a dangerous week. You're probably going to see a lot more of me than you'd like.
All right. I hate it when you say it like that, but keep an eye. Come back to the camera if you see anything popping off there. Appreciate you. Take it to the West now with Los Angeles still counting up votes in that critical mayor's race that everybody's watching and talking about, and that includes President Trump repeating kind of a familiar refrain. Look at this. Rigged election, crooked election, rigged election, et cetera. A lot of the lines he used to talk about the 2020 election he lost. Again, no evidence of any of this here, as was pointed out by our Meet the Press moderator, Kristen Welker, and that abrupt ending to their conversation. To be clear, nobody, not President Trump, not anyone, has provided any direct evidence of fraud in that LA mayor's race. But with Trump-friendly candidate Spencer Pratt now falling to third in the count behind progressive councilwoman Nithya Raman, we've got more and more people on the right who've started to amplify those claims. I want to bring in Liz Croy, who is in LA County for us tonight. Walk us through some of this, Liz, because this is basically a product of the way that California votes, right?
Yeah, hey, Hallie, that's right. We are in the ballot processing center for all of LA County right now, where they are processing the hundreds of thousands of ballots that come through here. And it does have to do, the delays have to do with our vote by mail system. Every single voter here in the state gets a mail-in ballot. It is extremely popular. I'm going to show you around here. This is where they're showing 81% of all the ballots that have come in so far in the county are vote by mail, and they take longer to process. This is one of the steps that they go through. This is after the signature verification process. It comes here to the extraction area where these workers are now removing the ballots from the envelopes, making sure there's no tears, no coffee stains, making sure it is all good to go to get over here Carlos, come on this way. This is the very secure tally room. Only authorized people are allowed in here. There is no Wi-Fi. It is air sealed. This is where the votes actually get counted. And Hallie, a part of the delay, too, in addition to this robust process, is just the sheer volume. We have this graphic to show you that there's 23 million registered voters in California, nearly 6 million alone in LA County. That is on par with all of the voter registration in Washington and more than several states. So a lot of factors here, Hallie.
Yeah, no kidding. And what's interesting, too, when you look at the nexus between where you're standing in California or I'm sitting in Washington, there's this big Supreme Court case coming up, right? And a chance that that may factor into the way that California tallies up the vote.
Yeah, Hallie. So this is Watson versus RNC. It originates out of Mississippi, which is one of the states like California that allows mail-in ballots to be counted so long as they are postmarked by Election Day and then arrive within a few days after. That can also lead to some of the delays. This Supreme Court case, the ruling we expect in a few weeks, if the court rules on the side of the RNC, it is possible California, at least in federal races, so House, Senate, presidential, are going to have to change the way that people vote and make sure that ballots arrive by Election Day, not after. So we'll see.
Okay, Liz Kreutz on high alert there in California for any news coming in on that count. Liz, thank you. We're glad to see you there. Thanks for showing us around, too. Also tonight, looks like President Trump is trying to get the ceasefire in the Middle East back on track after Israel and Iran traded strikes for the first time since April. The president says both sides now want a ceasefire ASAP. This is after the IDF says Iran launched something like 30 missiles into Israel today alone, right? 30 missiles. This is part of what we've been watching over the course of the last 24 hours. Significant news here. We haven't seen something like this, honestly, in weeks. And you hear that? Those are the air raid sirens in Tel Aviv. Iran says now it's over, right? That it's done this round of attacks after Israel struck back, hitting an oil and a gas plant. That's what you're seeing here. Iranian state media says you could hear explosions in Tehran today. Let me get to Richard Engel, who's in Jerusalem for us. And Richard, the dynamic here between President Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I think is really notable. Bibi told President Trump today, apparently in this phone call, according to an Israeli official, that Israel will retaliate if Iran strikes again. And it also seems like President Trump is making clear, you know, he's not in this conflict to try to back up Israel's goals, right?
Well, it's difficult for President Trump to say he's not in this conflict when he began this conflict with Prime Minister Netanyahu based on Israeli intelligence, based on allegations that Iran was developing a nuclear weapon, was about to use a nuclear weapon, allegations which have never been proven. I have never spoken to a scientist or an intelligence official in Israel or in the United States or anywhere else who said that Iran was on the brink of having or using or even able to deliver a nuclear weapon. So it's difficult for Trump now to play mediator in a war that he started because he doesn't like one of the participants or that they're not, both of the participants aren't playing ball. The U.S. was not involved in this particular military action last night. But you said that both sides, or President Trump is claiming that both sides now immediately want a ceasefire and they want to put this behind them. That is not what they are saying. Prime Minister Netanyahu quite explicitly said in Hebrew in a speech to the nation that Israel has never been stronger. Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran have never been weaker, and the struggle with them is not over. That is what he said. He didn't say, yes, we're done and we're going to rush back to the negotiating table. And Iran's chief negotiator, just a short while ago, says he doesn't see any credible ceasefire process and said that, and Iran said earlier that it will continue to negotiate and will continue on the battlefield on both fronts. So this round that we saw, this exchange of fire over the last 24 hours or so may have died down, but neither Israel nor Iran are suggesting that the war is over and that they're rushing toward a deal.
And I think the Iranians even said, you know, the ceasefire, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but it's something along the lines of like, ceasefire is barely a piece of paper at this point. I mean, that's how much stock they're putting into this. It almost feels to me, from where I'm sitting in Washington, Richard, and I want your perspective from the region, that there's this almost sort of tense purgatory state now with all of this.
Well, the ceasefire that is supposed to be in place in Lebanon is not working at all. And even the Lebanese president acknowledged that today. He said that he wants to sit down with Israel, sit down with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and work out a deal. If there was already a ceasefire in place, he wouldn't need to do that. There are Israeli troops inside Lebanon. There were new Israeli strikes against cities inside Lebanon. According to Lebanon's official news agency, at least 7 people were killed in strikes in 2 cities in southern Lebanon today, and many more injured. Hezbollah has been firing on Israeli troops. Hezbollah in recent days has fired into Israel across the border. So that doesn't sound or look or is a ceasefire.
Yeah.
And between the U.S. and Iran, there is still an active embargo. Every few days, the U.S. will stop or disable a ship militarily heading toward Iran or coming from Iran, which is an act of war. So it is a ceasefire, I think, in name only in many cases.
Richard Engel, live for us there in Jerusalem. Richard, we're super glad to have you there. Thank you very much for your perspective, your reporting, and your analysis. Thanks. Back here at home, police are asking the public for any help to figure out who was involved in that shooting at an Ohio festival. With the attackers still out there, at least two people started firing off at one another during this Toledo festival late on Saturday, according to police. Tons of people around, several hundred people. Can imagine a lot of them have their phones. One person pulled out their phone and captured this moment. Watch this. You hear the shots fired there. 12 victims in all, but police say they are all doing better. They are all in stable condition at this point. Stephen Romo is joining us now. But Stephen, no arrests at this point, right?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And to be honest, there's some frustration in the community about how little is known about those shooters as we are now in the 3rd day of the search to try to find them. Police say, as you mentioned, they're looking for at least 2 shooters in this situation who were very likely aiming for each other, meaning these 12 people were caught in the crossfire of this. And Hallie, this is the Old West End Festival that they have every year in Toledo. There was live music and street food, so there were a lot of families there. There were a lot of children there. Really upsetting that children experienced this chaotic situation that just completely disturbed their peace. And listen to what Toledo's mayor had to say in a statement. I thought this was interesting. He said, "Toledo has faced more adversity over the years than most cities, and our citizens always rally together and pull through. This will be no exception." I was fascinated going through all the video that we've seen of this shooting today, Hallie, and so often we hear that there are shots fired. People don't really know what it is. They think maybe it's fireworks. People seem to know very quickly what it was in this situation, most likely because those dozen people were hit by the gunfire. Meanwhile, shooters still apparently out there, and there are no scheduled updates from police expected to come until tomorrow morning, so could be then until we get more information. Hallie?
Stephen Romo, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Just in the last hour or so, we're getting some new video of scenes across South Florida after a 6.1 magnitude earthquake hit off the coast of Cuba. Miami officials, about 300 miles away from the epicenter of that quake, say nobody was hurt. There's no damage to buildings. But you look at people went outside. They weren't sure what was going on, so they left the buildings. That's not a bad idea. On the other side of the Gulf, we're seeing similar scenes. Crowds of people evacuating from a hotel all the way in Cancun, Mexico. Same in Cuba. No immediate reports there of anybody being hurt or any damage, but we're keeping an eye on it. We'll bring you any new info as we get it. The U.S. is also in a separate quake situation, tracking tsunami alerts, and more than 130 aftershocks near the Philippines after a deadly earthquake there killed at least 32 people. 200 plus have been hurt. Look at this, that building. I mean, that roof is wiped out, basically. Look, you can see what looks to be maybe the remains of a parking garage. Debris covering the streets there in the Philippines. It happened this morning, local time, about 15 miles off the coast. They're used to earthquakes in this part of the world, but this was a big one, 7.8 magnitude, the strongest to hit the Philippines this year. Here's Keir Simmons.
Hey there, yeah, this was, as you describe, a sizable earthquake in the southern Mindanao region of the Philippines. It is a part of the world that is prone to seismic activity, but this was a substantial one, and there are frightening pictures of buildings collapsing and of school children. They had just got back to school after a long break, and elementary school children, for example, running for cover as the ground shook. Many buildings damaged or even destroyed, and through the night there have been searches for those missing to try and find survivors, aside from those who we know already have been killed. And as we head towards 24 hours since the earthquake took place, one of the fears has been the number of aftershocks. Their number of aftershocks has been in triple figures, and of course that is a risk for those who've been displaced as they fear heading back into their homes or even into buildings that may have been damaged. There's been concern too for critical infrastructure like bridges, and then this earthquake that happened offshore causing a tsunami, not the biggest tsunami that we've seen in that region through history, but certainly one that has caused damage and brought about fears for many people living along that coastline.
Our Keir Simmons with that reporting. To a new warning now on that Ebola outbreak that has spread so quickly, with CDC officials saying it could potentially rival the biggest Ebola epidemic we've ever seen, ever in history. That's because in just the last week and a half, the case count has nearly tripled in the DRC and Uganda, with 400 more confirmed infections. 74 more people have been killed, according to the WHO. At this point, because things are moving so quickly, health officials are actually scaling back on counting cases in the region. That gives you a sense of just how fast this is moving. I want to get to Dr. Akshay Syal, who's joining us now. Walk us through some of the latest developments here, Dr. Akshay, because this is really continuing to spike.
Yeah, Hallie, and what we've been sort of comparing this to, and what a lot of people have been wondering is this going to be as bad as the outbreak about a decade or so ago? Remember the 2013 to 14 outbreak of Ebola that was caused by a different form of the virus. It caused nearly 30,000 infections and about 11,000 deaths or so. And so, Hallie, the CDC actually late Friday released a sort of modeling report. You know, epidemiologists and disease detectives tend to do this to get a sense of what we need to do and how bad could this get. And I'll just read you a line here. You know, they're saying that if basically if 70% of people who get the infection isolate, there's an extremely low likelihood, you know, about a 1 in 20 chance that this outbreak will surpass 10,000 cases. If that number, instead of 70% isolate, goes down to 20%, about a 65% chance it will see 20,000 plus cases. All that to say, those things that we always talk about, the isolation, the testing, the quarantining, the contact tracing, really does make a big difference. You'll remember in the last Ebola outbreak, Hallie, about 10 years or so ago, there wasn't a vaccine at the time. There weren't approved treatments at the time. So we were sort of dealing with the same playbook. We know it can be done. We know this disease can be controlled. We just have to do the steps that we've learned from history. Hallie?
There is a bit of, if there is any good news, it's that American doctor. Remember, I know you know, was infected while treating patients in the DRC. He has now been released from a German hospital. And look at this. He was reunited with his family, Dr. Akshay, which is just, I think so many people are happy to see it.
Yeah, that's Dr. Peter Stafford on the left, his wife, Rebecca Stafford, both physicians. And, you know, Hallie, this is just so great to see. You and I were talking about this several weeks ago when he first got infected. It is every doctor's worst nightmare to pick up an infection while treating a patient. I'm so glad to see that, you know, he was able to be treated. He's recovered. He's back home. Of course, this is the Bundibugyo strain, Hallie, the form of Ebola that does not have a vaccine, does not have treatments. So they were trying experimental things. And, you know, at one point he was pretty sick. We remember talking about how he was sort of not walking well onto the sort of exit aircraft out of his region. So glad to see that, and I hope viewers take note as well.
Dr. Akshay Syal, good to see you. Thank you. To Texas now, in a courtroom there with a teen's murder trial coming to a rather quick close here. Carmelo Anthony. Remember, we've been talking about this one, very high-profile trial. He decided not to testify in his own defense today, with his lawyers resting their case. And the judge telling the jury, like, okay, this is it. This is all of the evidence you're going to hear. Anthony's accused of killing another student, Austin Metcalf, at a high school track meet last year. Anthony's lawyers say it was self-defense, a case that captivated the country when it happened and continues to do so now. Part of what's so controversial is the makeup of the jury. Anthony is black. Metcalf was white. None of the 12 jurors or 6 alternates are black. Closing arguments are set for tomorrow, when the jury is also expected to start deliberating. So one to watch. We may be on verdict watch by this time tomorrow night. More to get to here on the show, including coming up, more details on a number of key stories, including our 5 things that our team thinks you need to know. We'll be right back. Some breaking news to get to tonight. The Coast Guard says it is concluding its search in the Bahamas for the Michigan woman who went missing there. Remember Lynette Hooker? Her husband was initially taken into custody after Lynette disappeared way back in the beginning of April, but he was later released. No charges were filed. Officials have been using divers and drones and dogs to try to find any sign of Lynette Hooker. The Coast Guard says they're not done investigating. They say they've transferred evidence from officials in the Bahamas to the U.S. This is obviously a story that we have been watching closely. We will continue to track this case and bring you any updates as we get them. Let's get you over now to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, OpenAI just filed to go public. Big news in the tech and business world. Comes about a week after its biggest competitor, Anthropic, did the same thing. OpenAI, of course, the parent company of ChatGPT, says it hasn't decided exactly when they'll let investors buy its stocks, but they say it may be a while because there are things we want to do that are likely easier as a private company. Number 2, we are just learning there are at least 3 more cases confirmed of that flesh-eating screwworm parasite we've been telling you about. According to Texas health officials, they say screwworm was found in a dog, a goat, and a calf in that state, hundreds of miles apart from each other. That means the total number of cases is up to 5. The governor there has launched an emergency operations center to respond to this. Number 3, actor Idris Elba has now ruled himself out, it seems, of playing the next James Bond. He says that some audiences, in his view, will not go for a black man in the role. He's also telling GQ in a new interview that Bond shouldn't become, in his words, woke. Rumors around him taking the job date back years and years to when Daniel Craig says it was time for a black Bond. Number 5, a man in Texas is accused of using a fake boarding pass to sneak onto a United flight. It happened last month. He was in court today. The plane was getting ready to take off from Houston when the guy was found hiding in the bathroom. TSA says the man showed a valid pass while going through security. Number 5, nearly 100 schools in one city in Japan are closed today because of a bear on the loose there. Look at this. You can see surveillance video of the bear running around. It comes as bear attacks are on the rise in Japan. Also tonight here at home, investigators are trying to figure out why a private plane crashed in the DR, killing the 2 American pilots who were on board. Here's video of the crash, the private jet smashing into the ground. It's really scary. It never really got any lift. This was at a runway at the airport there, just horrific. A Dominican aviation agency says the plane was registered in the U.S. and that there were no passengers on board, but it was heading to pick up a baseball legend. Former MLB great Yadier Molina offered his condolences to the pilot. He says that plane was headed to Texas to pick him up and take him to Puerto Rico. George Solis is joining us now.
Hallie, the video is dramatic to say the least. From what we've gathered here from aviation officials there in the Dominican Republic, this private jet was in the air maybe a few minutes before the pilots on board declared an emergency and needed to land. And what you see there is the plane veering off the runway, trying to land, eventually just erupting into that ball of fire that you see there. Then you see first responders trying to put out the flames. Of course, the people on the ground there just taken back by what they were seeing. Now, we do know there was no one else on board, according to aviation officials. It was just the pilot and his co-pilot. We're told they were U.S. nationals, pilots that are being remembered and eulogized on Facebook through various groups and other people that knew them. And again, aviation officials right now saying they don't know what the cause of this was. They just know that the plane was in the air there for a number of minutes before this emergency was declared. Now, of course, the other part to this story is where this flight was reportedly heading to. This plane was in La Romana International, set to be en route to Austin, Texas, to pick up an MLB star, Yadier Molina, who on social media posted, Yadi posting that this flight was apparently there to pick him up, heading to pick him up and bring him back to Puerto Rico with his family. He, of course, expressed his condolences for the loss. We reached out to reps for Yadi Molina. We have not heard back. Again, the investigation into this crash continues right now, Hallie. We've also reached out to other aviation officials there in the DR to see if there's anything more that they have gathered or learned here in the hours since this happened on Sunday, but they are still trying to collect more data from this horrific crash. And again, that baseball star also safe. Again, that flight supposed to pick him up from Texas to bring him back to Puerto Rico. More to come on this, of course. Hallie?
George Solis, thank you very much. The internet kind of on fire, not just from that video, but from this very interesting post that was dropped from an art director from this big, huge, kind of the summer surprise blockbuster, the indie film Obsession. She said she made less than $7 grand for her work on the project, a movie that has now grossed like millions and millions and millions of dollars. Obsession. If you haven't heard of it, it's this kind of like low-budget psychological horror film. It's now expected to break $250 million at the box office. The art director for the movie says she was paid about $300 per day for what she calls a pretty stressful production. But some in the industry say that her pay and workload is actually fairly average for indie films. We've reached out to the director of Obsession and Focus Features for comment. We didn't immediately hear back. We should note Focus is part of NBC News' parent company, Comcast. I want to bring in Chloe Malas, who's following this one. This thing kind of blew up, right? Because on the one hand, you've got folks saying, well, the art director knew what she signed up for at the start. And like, this is kind of what happens in these indie movies. You maybe take a little bit of a bet. You don't know, is it going to hit big or not? Maybe you use it as a launching pad for the rest of your career. There's others who say, hey, she's sort of shining a light maybe on this industry practice. Walk us through some of the dynamics here.
Hallie, there is so much to unpack here. And like you said, this movie being made for $750,000, going on to make worldwide over $200 million. It's Focus Features' highest grossing movie ever. So let's just put that into perspective. So Sally, when she took to Instagram to write about all the hats that she wore on the production, not just art director, she says she was a driver, she ran errands, she did all sorts of things, and it is an indie movie. She says, I did know the rate beforehand, and I agreed to it. But at this point, I was living paycheck to paycheck. This is the reality of most filmmakers, especially those who work below the line. We become a line in the budget sheet to keep as low as possible. She goes on to say, I kick myself every single day for not flipping this production. I was encouraged not to, and I naively listened. A lot of people are coming forward saying, listen, I hear you. I commiserate with you. I was there too. You know, you got to keep working in the industry, pay your dues. Now, others are saying, why would you kick a gift horse in the mouth, saying that although you didn't make a lot of money, this was only your second film, it seems, on her resume. You could have used this instead of burning bridges to potentially work with these individuals again, to come out so publicly. Perhaps not a very good idea. But as you said, Hallie, it is creating a lot of conversation. But I want to point out, though, that $300 a day as an art director on an indie movie, that is typical. You can't, that's the low end, but that's not below the line.
Can I ask a question? This is not my, my field of work, and I'm curious about this. When it comes to like union rules, for example, would a movie like this have been covered by the union? Like, do they cover these sort of low budget indies?
They absolutely do, and it appears that she is in a union, and $300 a day is the standard rate. She made a little under $7,000 for about 20 days of work. And when you look at what other companies are doing, Ben Affleck's AI company, they are looking to make sure to give below the line people who work on their movies a bump when a movie does really well, like a bonus, an incentive. And there are other companies, like one called Ethos, which has had a couple movies where they actually pay everybody, including the lead actor and those behind the scenes and art directors, all the same amount of money, which is actually a really interesting concept that they say actually works really, really well. And they did that for their movie Sing Sing, which, as you know, got a lot of critical acclaim. So it's starting an important conversation about pay equity. This woman has a lot of courage to come out and say these things. But again, others say that, you know what, maybe she's burning some bridges.
Chloe Malas, thank you very much for being on top of that one. Appreciate it. Coming up, some scary moments after a truck full of fireworks explodes. Look at this, what we're learning about what happened here. That's wild. Plus, what to expect as the man accused of starting what became one of the most destructive fires in California history heads to trial. Tonight, lots to watch as prosecutors and defense attorneys are getting a first look today at potential jurors in the trial of the man accused of starting what became one of the deadliest and most destructive wildfires in California history. Jonathan Rinderknecht is accused of starting a fire in January of last year, which then reignited a few days later and exploded into, of course, the Palisades fire, which killed 12 people, which destroyed thousands of homes across L.A. Prosecutors say that the man on trial was upset about a failed relationship and had ranted to some of his Uber passengers about being mad at the world. Now, his defense team says he's actually a scapegoat for the L.A. Fire Department, which his attorneys blame for not stopping the initial fire. Steve Patterson is joining us now. And Steve, It's the very beginning of the trial now, but it's coming at a time when obviously the wounds have, and I don't mean to get like all philosophical, but the wounds still have not healed from the Palisades fire even in the first place here. It's still very raw for so many people. Walk us through some of that and what's expected as this trial really gets going.
I mean, you can see the rawness in the nature of the LA mayor's race. Look no further than the fact that Spencer Pratt is a candidate for LA mayor in a place that is, what, less than 20% registered Republicans, in a place where this guy who's this reality star villain has become the possible third candidate vying for a top 2 spot in the November primary. His candidacy is entirely based on the fact that he did lose a home in the LA fires, but so many people have also had that experience, right? 6,800 structures destroyed, 12 people killed. People were mad, and people continue to be mad because while rebuilding has started, a lot of the phase 1, phase 2 debris removal, some of the foundations are coming back, permits have been cleared. People still remember what happened that day, and they're questioning the leadership. They're questioning a mayor that essentially wasn't here when those fires were happening. They're questioning a mayor that possibly had some ties to how the budget worked leading up to the fires and how many firefighters were on the ground and what was taken from the reservoirs. All of those questions have led people to think maybe there needs to be a change here. And I think that sort of open wound is still raw. It's still here, and you can still definitely feel it, Hallie. Opening statements expected in a few days. Jury selection right now, as you mentioned. Hallie?
But the judge says the defense can't actually introduce evidence or arguments accusing the fire department of negligence because she says it's irrelevant, right?
That's right. And that was sort of, as we've been sort of hearing these pretrial interviews, that was probably going to be their main defense. They're now saying that there were fireworks in the area, and they believe that the state does not have any evidence to tie their person to the fact that that fire started in the first place, Hallie.
Steve Patterson, thank you very much for being there. I know we'll be talking about this in the days to come. Appreciate that. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, look at this. The moment a pickup truck full of fireworks explodes in the middle of a highway in Tennessee. Watch this. That's just wild to watch. You hate to see it, right? Apparently the stockpile of fireworks went off after a fire started in the trailer, basically in the bed of the truck. The good news is, despite that, nobody was hurt, which is huge. Also, out of our Northeast Bureau, dramatic rescue in a New Jersey apartment building. First responders combing through all this trash to rescue a woman after she fell down a trash chute there. She went in on the 14th floor, ended up 10 stories down. Took about a half hour to get her out because she got stuck on top of some backed up trash. The woman and one firefighter were hurt, but both are expected to fully recover. And out of our Western Bureau, take a look at this. A hot air balloon making a rather surprise landing at a lumber yard in Oregon. The workers, I mean, it's coming in rather slowly at least. You see the workers kind of backing out. Looks like they maybe grabbed one of the ropes there, stepping in to help, which is huge. They managed to get the balloon down safely. All's well that ends well after a day on the job. Coming up, revving up the conversation about electric cars in the face of spiking costs for American drivers. We've got more in tonight's original. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it's the high cost of owning a car and what it means for your summer road trip. See the average price at the old pump today. Do we love that phrase, price at the pump? I don't know. People in the news do. You can see it's about $4.16, down a little bit, still, on the higher end. And now you've got some drivers really drilling down on how they can save some money, like possibly switching to electric, even as some cheaper EV options remain out of reach. Allie Canal explains.
This summer, it's never been more expensive to own and drive a car in America. The average new car costs almost $50,000. With interest rates still high, average monthly payments hit an all-time high of $773. And while gas prices have come down a bit, the Strait of Hormuz is still essentially closed, and you're probably paying north of $4 a gallon.
Prices are crazy, so I can see why people would want to conserve their money.
I've been walking to school now because of the gas prices.
Americans are searching for deals. One place they can't find them, Chinese electric cars. A booming biz. Last year, more than half of all cars sold in China, the largest market in the world, were electric. But Chinese automakers selling more than 500,000 cars in Europe last year, too. A big reason why? They're cheap. Leading the way, Chinese automaker BYD, which outsold Tesla in Europe starting last year, with some models starting under $30,000. Our Tom Yamas got a test drive while in China.
You can't get this in the U.S. right now.
No.
That's because of a ban on Chinese technology and 100% tariffs on China-made EVs. But now, a growing call to let China at least make their cars here.
They want to come in and build a plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors. That's great. I love that. Let China come in.
But U.S. automakers don't want China to come in. They cite national security concerns around Chinese spying. But the bigger issue might be price.
China has been going into lots of international markets and undercutting price in those markets. It might be very, very hard for U.S. automakers to adapt to.
Some believe the U.S. can compete, but only on a, quote, level playing field. GM CEO Mary Barra talking with our Christine Romans as part of our new Business in America series.
Can GM match the quality and the price of those Chinese competitors?
Well, I think you have to look at what's happening, and we know from a Chinese vehicle perspective, they're being subsidized heavily by the government. I'm confident that we can compete.
The problem is China's entire EV industry has spent decades benefiting from its own government support. The U.S. tried to offer some support with the Biden administration's EV incentives, but many of those policies now phased out, and the big three U.S. car makers racked up tens of billions of dollars in losses from EVs over the last few years. The Alliance for American Manufacturing says Chinese cars coming to the United States could be a, quote, extinction-level event for the U.S. auto sector. As gas prices eat into wallets and generate more interest in electric cars, time will tell what American consumers demand and how much they're willing to pay for it. Hallie Canal, NBC News.
Our thanks to Hallie for that reporting. More to get to here on the show, including the final preps for the World Cup. Did you hear? It's starting soon? Our Morgan Chesky is on the old pitch with Team USA. Wait, the World Cup's beginning? You got it. World Cup fever. I got it. We all got it, right? Because it starts this week, and Team USA is getting the last few kicks in before they lock in for the tournament. Look at this. The last public practice just outside L.A. The men will play 2 of their group stage games at SoFi Stadium, home of the Rams. But there's already some concerns about whether the games are going to go off cleanly, considering that stadium hospitality workers have just voted to strike. They're authorizing a strike ahead of that opening match for the U.S. Friday. Morgan Chesky is outside that practice in California. Give us sort of the I hate to say vibe check, but I don't hate to say vibe check. But what it's like, you know, there's this question of disruptions, but Team USA, I imagine, is still saying they're ready to go.
Hallie, nothing wrong with a good vibe check. The vibes have been high here in Irvine all day long. 33,000 people submitted to be a part of this lottery. 55 lucky recipients got a chance to sit inside this stadium and soak in about an hour's worth of watch time for the U.S. men's national team as they took the field. Many of them in those bright pink cleats, so we can see that fancy footwork come World Cup match time. And there was a lot of excitement, not just on behalf of the fans in attendance, many who drove from all over the place to watch this, but for the players themselves. They know they're going to have home field advantage. And here's what team veteran, one of the team veterans, Tim Reen, had to say on being one of the oldest players in World Cup history and just getting a chance to play in his backyard. Take a listen.
Pulling up here with 5,500 fans ready to watch a training session is incredible, and I just think that we're in a good place mentally right now.
Yeah, team in a great place mentally, as well as those 2 players on the team who are Southern California natives, Hallie. Everyone's excited.
I'm excited, but I know nothing about it. So in the next, I have about 40 seconds left with you. My top 3 storylines. I got my little booklet. I got my little set. Like, what am I looking for?
I've got it all locked up in here and, of course, on the screen as we share with everybody what they need to be keying in on here. Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, two of the most famous soccer players in the history of the game. Messi wants to defend Argentina's title from the last World Cup, and Ronaldo wants to win his country's first World Cup. And then, of course, you have Spanish prodigy Lamine Yamal, who's the most valuable player here, his ball handling elite. And then you have Erling Haaland, who's hoping to lead Norway to his first tournament since 1998. Home teams have home field advantage. They want to make the World Cup quarterfinals here, if not better, Hallie.
Appreciate you. Come back. I want to do this again. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Yep.
And the next day, and the next day. Morgan Chesky, thank you very much. And thank you all, as always, for watching. This is HJN on NBC. We'll see you right back here in just a little bit.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.